Yes, welcome to my New Year ramble. Rumble along the mid in this crisp and even mid-January time of year. Rufus, who is here to keep me company and to sound off to when I need to have a little bit of a sound off. I've decided to make a few resolutions instead of dissolutions. A little video regarding embarrassing when someone walks past you and you're talking in a very sort of strange manner to perhaps the way that you look. Not that people are generalising. Gorgeous, isn't it? A splendiferous view of the Norfolk countryside. Who am I kidding? It's bloody awful. Well, the doctor said to me, he said, Frank, he said, you must start going for a few more walks to compensate the imbalance in inequality of the level of inactivity and calories that you consume. So you must go for a few more hearty strolls, get the dog out. Dog needs to go on a diet as well, and just to fill those lungs up with a little bit of we don't want to see that, do we? Well, as much fresh air as you can, of course, consume, aside from the stratospheric ozone, which is sort of affecting us all at this time. Dr. Mary say to me, yes, Dr. Mary, yes, likes to be known as Bob, because it doesn't like to be referred as a doctor, but I think it's to do with his surname, but never mind. Dr. Mary said to me, he said, Frank, he said, you need to readjust and reevaluate your life. So I've decided to do that, not just with more walking, a little bit more thought about who I am as a person, and of course he also said to me, he said, Frank, you may well be celiac intolerant, as well as lots of other intolerances. And I said, blimey, I said, my first wife, I said, this is astounding. I said, how you know these things? I said, my first wife was called Celia, and I was rather intolerant of her as well. He said to me, well, he said, Frank, you need to take a look. He said, you wonder why you're always having a bloated stomach. I said, I think it was because I eat too many pork pies. And he said, well, he says, that's probably the case. But also, he said, I think you are also perhaps reacting to some of the things you're eating. So think a little bit more carefully. So I've decided I've become a vegan, I think that's how you pronounce it. And so the other day I was in this restaurant and I sat down and I said I would like a nice cream tea, but the astoundment, the waitress, when she looked at me and she said, okay, that's fine. And I said to her, well, I was astounded until I said, well, I'm intolerant, I'm gluten intolerant, I'm celiac intolerant. What have you got to satisfy my needs? I would like the nearest damn thing to a cream tea. So, Lord above me, she turns up this nice silver platter. That's all right, Rufus. Nice silver platter she brings over to me, and she says, there we are, Mr. Bollinger. I said, Lord Bollinger to you. And she just looked at me rather vaguely. And anyway, she brought over this silver tray and she lifted it up. And I nearly fell off my chair. Slightly due to the fact that my stomach protrudes and I'm a little bit like a weeble, unfortunately, that doesn't wobble. But anyway, she brought this over, lifted it up, and I said, that's not a cream tea. Well, anyway, it was 2 lettuce leaves. In the middle was some avocado, and on the top was some horseradish sauce. And she said, well, that's the cream effect. And I said, what do you mean cream effect? She said, well, that is creamed horseradish sauce. And I said, what about the scone? She said, well, that went a long time ago. So unfortunately, that's all we've got. Anyway, I said, well, what about some bread? Well, she brought over this rather anemic looking stuff. It looked like someone had the life force drawn out of them. And on top of that, I had to pay a bonus fee because, of course, of all my intolerances. And also, just to say, I also, part of my New Year resolution was that I was just finding people rather intolerable. Not just my diet, but also the people around me. Anyway, my mate Dick, we went on this sort of stag hunt, jolly. And anyway, he said, and I looked at his boots, and anyway, I said to him, well, what the dickens have you got on your laces? And he said, well, these are multicoloured rainbow laces. These, of course, embrace the equality of all. This is a sign that we welcome one and all. I said, well, you have to wear rainbow laces to do that. So he got me a nice pair as well, and and every time I walk down the high street now, people give me funny looks, and I wonder why. I said to the waitress, I said, could I have a black coffee? So I have a hangover, and she said, oh, you can't say that. I said, what? She said, you can't say black. I said, well, I'll have a cafe noir then. She said, well, that's the same thing. And I said, I couldn't believe this. She said, well, you're being racist. And I said, racist? I've asked for a black coffee. And she said, well, yes, you can't do that. You have to say a coffee of a slightly darker shade. And I said, well, a coffee of a slightly darker shade? Coffee is dark. And I said, what about if I asked for a white coffee? She said, shh, don't say that too loudly. You'll offend those people over there. And I said, well, they're the same colour as me, for goodness sake. She said, well, you have to be careful. So I walk down the road, walking down, and I see this lady. She drops her purse on the floor. So I pick it up and I take it over to her as a true gentleman. And I said, here we are, madam. And she said, who are you calling madam? She said, I'm a man. And I said, what? You're a man? She said, yes. She said, I used to be a woman, but now I'm a man, and I find this highly offensive that you are calling me madam, and I will be taking this to the papers and also points of view. I said, for goodness sake. I said, the fact you're wearing a skirt. She said, do not people wear skirts across the board? And I said, well, I haven't seen many women wearing skirts across the board, but this is highly unusual. She said, you mustn't call me madam. You must call me a neutral gender person. So anyway, I had to swallow pie, and I had to recreate the scene. So I picked the purse up again off the floor. She said, do it again. So I picked it up. I said, okay, here we are. This is for you, for a gender neutral person. Here we are, gender neutral person. So anyway, I was stumbling into the mall, not that I normally stumble upon malls, and I walked in to this very, very darkened shop. And I said, for goodness sake, I said, I need night vision goggles to see in here. I can't hear a damn thing because it's so noisy. And the lady, the assistant, took me to one side. She said, do you know what shop this is? I said, no. She said, this is Hollister. I said, and? She said, well, Hollister. She said, be careful what you're saying. Making reference to darkened rooms and loud music, you'll offend all the teenagers. And I said, what? Offending the teenagers? I said, you can't say things like that. To make matters worse, I went to the seaside recently, and I thought, well, I better be careful what I'm saying. Anyway, I went to this vendor on the side. I thought I needed something hot and nourishing to eat, and I thought, well, I saw this lovely hot dog, and I thought, well, I better be careful how I phrase myself regarding this hot dog. So I said to the man, I said, could I have something long between two buns, please? And I was immediately arrested. I was in the promenade, and I was walking along, and I thought, ooh, it's one of those what the butler saw. So I thought, well, all for charity, for the church fund. So I put my pound in. over the last few years. And anyway, I put my money in. And this lady, she taps me on the shoulder. She said, "This is just not acceptable." She said, "You shouldn't be watching something as raunchy as this at your age." And I said, "At my age?" And she said, "Yes, at your age." And she said, "I appreciate it's for charity." He said, "But charity should stay at home." And I said, "Well, she normally does. She does a little bit of cleaning in the morning. And then, of course, things progress." And to cap it off, to make matters worse, the pinnacle of the highest peak in the world, I was gobsmacked. It was when I went to a local corner shop. Granted, it was one that was off the main street, and I bought this Kiss Me Quick hat, and I won't even tell you what happened following that. I said to the church warden, Gerald, have a pew. He looked gobsmacked at me. He said, can't have a pew in here. This isn't a toilet. This is a place of God. I mean, for goodness sake, what is the world coming to? So I said to Gerald, I said, as we reflected and contemplated the world, and I said, "Gerald, as we walk down this famous back passage, let us remember all the good that there is in the world." And he looked at me and he just stood there almost in a catatonic state, and he said, "You can't say things like that," making reference to good and back passages. And I just, oh goodness me, if you can't beat them. And then we got on to the subject of the Mona Lisa, and I said, "The Mona Lisa's a fine work of Da Vinci at its very best." And he looked at me again, dumbfounded. In a sort of a conditional response, he replied to me. He said, "You can't call her the Mona Lisa anymore." I said, "Really? Since when?" I said, "Well, ever since you've probably been wearing those rainbow effect boots." And I said, "Well, what do we call her then?" He said, "Well, we have to call her the Mona gender neutral." But then, of course, he had to reflect on that, and he thought, well, actually, we're making. He says we're actually offending people that moan a lot as well. So we have to say. So instead of calling it the Mona Lisa, we have to call it the person who has perhaps. The person who is deep contemplating emojis, someone who is gender neutral. Well, we're working on that.